Ladies and Germans, how you all doing? This is Con Ulrich.
This is Ringroo. Hello, hello, hello.
And folks, today we are on Ocean North for our obligatory, as you would say, kind Rang, Finnish coverage. Today, sir, what Finnish division do we have, and who are the schlubs that are playing them?
Left hand side in the blue, we have Hypokrass playing the Panzer Division Tantra with a balanced income. Right hand side in red, we have Homer playing Raima Rapana, also with a balanced income.
Well, and right now, it does look like Tatra seems to think that it's time to call for the Czech. Well, the Czech tanks, that is, because we have 5 P-38s over here to the northern side, which, again, not really the scariest of vehicles, but against the Finns can be surprisingly beefy.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a smart move because it's just enough armor to survive against T-26 and also being extremely cost efficient because it's only 5 points more than the T-26, but it has like so much more armor.
yeah, it does. And now we have Volkstrom in the meantime. Volkstrom just absolutely shellacking their incoming troops. They're going to go down, but they forced everybody to actually get out and get down on foot. And it's just in time the P-38s. They were engaging a little bit below, but P-38s rotating above, and they're going to just, I think, to the Ratsuvaki over here into more like Bulya base.
Yep. It
Especially
seems
J-27s. Yikes.
very heavy like infantry plays from both sides. I mean, up north, we got this infantry finish push. The Panzer 38 are going to get caught out in the open here. Perfect ambush from the forest. I do like how Holmes is kind of not even bothering going up the hill, but circling around the bottom of it. Probably try to cut it off and then attack upwards.
Well, we're seeing lots of smoke being used over here as well, which I think is a really, really great response to the couple of P-38s still there. Because look at this, the Chikari's moving to the west. They can lock down that T intersection. You can see the Landeschützen being thrown in there as a desperate, desperate ploy to kind of keep them at arm's length.
Mm-hmm.
And the Latis not really having the greatest of days. He's going to go down to 231 pretty darn quickly. Just in a half moment of respite that we have. MG-34s engaging 2 Lati squads in the center. Down south, there's actually been a brutal amount of artillery fire. Jeez, there was an off-map just obliterated something here.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it was a Gauntlet Familiar dropping that in. And we are seeing the counter-attack right now of all the Finnish infantry pushing on through. The armoured vehicles are doing quite fine, you know. So, I don't... Unless that Panzer Strike Squad can get some serious kills in, I think this might be a little bit difficult here for... Actually, no, it's okay, it's got an anti-tank gun. Never mind, he should be fine.
Yeah, he should be fine, and the 75 mil is not going to do a whole lot. I mean, that's... Let me rephrase. It's more than enough to kill. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's also going to take a lot of firepower, so he's going to get maybe 1 or 2 shots off, and then that will be it. So he's going to get 1 kill, and then he's going to go down. There we go. Castro's Curse doesn't always hit. Northern side, Landeschützen and the P-38s support fire. There's going to be 1 T-26 making it on in there. But like you said, the T-26 is kind of... If you took a tank and put paper mache over it and said, "Go, my friend, to the Eastern Front with you," and prayed that the freezing temperatures made that paper mache as good as actual armor.
Yeah, honestly, thinking about that now, like, being in some of those Soviet-era tanks in the World War II in, like, the freezing winter, that must have just sucked.
Yeah, I kind of feel like the extremes are always kind of a weird place to be. Chikari's, in the meantime, by the way, moving up the hillside, trying to flush out the Volkssturm and the Flammenwerfer. I feel like the extremes are ridiculous. It's like, either you're in North Africa, we can literally go and fry an egg on one of your tanks, which has been tried, or you're in Russia, and you're like, oh yes, I'm going to put my unmitted hand on this gear because I desperately need to turn it. Oh, now I have, I'm going to deglove my hand from skin.
I am now part of the machine. I've become the cyborg.
Exactly. Quick, call the tech priest. P-38 hopping on out here, going to engage a T-26 from murderously close range. Still gets 2 shots off to the 1 and does finally take it out. There we go.
Yeah, P-38 position on the hill has definitely done a good job of stopping Homer from getting too much of an advantage from this front position. And you're seeing just all the Volkssturm and Landschützen spam is working quite well. Because Panzer Division Tatra, for being a Panzer Division, has some really, like, scary infantry options.
Yes, they do. But T-26 is down south at the same time. Northern side being contained over here for the Finns, but southern side is bleeding a little bit. It's a little more communist than you might want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
As all the... excuse me, wow. Let me switch the order of that. It's more Finnish than you want it to be.
Yeah. Okay,
As,
finished off.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. They're certainly putting the finishing touch on this. But Landesschützen being brought on in here as well. I'll bite my tongue about this because I know they're doing their job here, which is hold the line, try to stabilize it, move from there. So I understand. Mm-hmm.
It's just not looking good here at all for Hippo. Like if Homer can get onto the the final hill position here, get some anti-tank weaponry down, he can pretty easily just zone out and win the southern flank, which is a big plus for Weimar-Rapana, as you don't really want to be attacking too much. It's, as we've seen in the past, it's a bite and hold division, and mainly just holding.
So we have a P3L in the Ju-87. So the Ju-87s have been decent down south. The northern side hasn't had any effect whatsoever because of that. There was the Verkoten 20 mil that was up there. Down south, the Verkoten's not in position yet, and you can see it really causing hassles. So while the last couple of rounds the Verkoten are going to chase it away, they are going to get the force, but not without a significant loss.
That was a very good hit from the Stuka, knocking out 2 infantry squads, yeah. He still has some T-26s in the back line, but yeah, he doesn't have the best hold on this southern position, and also he still needs to clear out the in-between forest down south. There's the Panzer 38T and Landschützen in there, which of course will take time to go through and clear out that position. Yeah, okay, he's bringing out a Panzer Schrenk squad to Panzer Schrenk the Panzer 38.
That is true. The Trinqueto Junta over here, Trinqueto Junta. I'm not entirely sure why I always turn him into like a Spanish squad. But the T-26 is going to engage that P3L, and statistically they can kill it. 3-1. Those are odds that most people would like, even in those little rinky-dink things.
Yeah, you can just get closer and actually engage all of them instead of run out of time. It's a bit of a micro error because up north we are seeing a pretty hefty counter-attack here from Hypokrass. He's got all the Landschützens, all the Volkssturm, all the Panzer 38Ts, seen close air support strikes here from Homer as well. So yeah, we're just going tit for tat up north and down south.
True, and Homer is a 13-11 right now, so Hypokrass with Tatra, he is losing a little bit of pressure. The P3L is going to take some rockets, but it's not enough. The Trinqueto Junta's over here, enough to take out that lead P38T. That said, yeah, that gauntlet, well, he's certainly a legend, isn't he?
Yeah.
P3 down south probably does go down. Looks like the T26 did crack that at long last. But this Volkssturm kind of push, not even the Jakari are going to be able to kind of force that back, which is a weird sentence to hear, that Jakari can't do something. I kind of feel like at this point, the Jakari should be able to do my taxes, considering how devastatingly effective they are across everything.
Yeah, such a good squad, but this is the power of Panzer Division Tatra, of just throwing so many bodies at you. And they may not be the best dudes, of course, but all of them have Panzerfaust at least, which actually in this case against Weimar-Rapana is for the most part quite useless.
True. Barrage comes down to the northern side of the Führer, and Landesschützen, heck, even the P3 takes some barrage here, but the Jakari is taking a greater losses than that. T-26 is going to find themselves, I think, taken out pretty quickly here. Yep. So lost one of those falls, which is a very, very bad place to be if you are Finnish. But we did see obviously Ju-87 go down to the south. What a shame. The Hypokrass still has another 20 planes to call on throughout the course of this match. So,
yeah, so let's get into a very grindy flanking position. Though, yeah, off-map artillery up north has given Homer quite some needed time. Honestly, for Hypokrass, it might be a decent idea trying to push somewhere in the center, probably the opposing town, Homer's town, that is, as you know, your tank division. You have tanks. The Finns aren't very good in the open. They get, what's the bloody phobia word? We talked about it in a previous cast.
Agoraphobia.
They have agoraphobia.
Which is ironic, since they're quite the skiers. But yeah, you're right. I think taking that town would be one of those things that would not allow that Homer field advantage. Um, I'm still practicing, man. Artillery strike drops down so as all these Volkssturm and Flammenwerfer troops get forced back. So we actually could see a massive surrender force. Yep, that's one. Unfortunately, they did go and toss out a bunch of Molotovs, so losing some of the most effective pieces here. And the Ratsuvaki and the Tenkoto Yunta take out the P3. So Tatra donating a couple of very, I like to say very effective tanks. Maybe it's a bad way to call it, but certainly notable tanks here pretty early on.
Yeah, he can afford to be losing said tanks, but of course in the cost effectiveness department, you don't want to be running tanks near any forest full of Finns, just in general. And you see he's starting to change up his strategy a bit by bringing out recon panzers, which will be much more useful in trying to spot and rout out those dastardly Finns.
Yeah, do you think that a German tank, when they get close to the trees and they see Finn there, they start hearing the Jaws theme? Okay. Yeah, dude, if I see Finns everywhere, I'm going to start thinking I'm out in the water. I get that. So, we are 14:10, by the way, as we go into Phase B. We are 70 seconds into that as we speak. Like you said, Recon Panzers, he's put 2 down south, which I think is a little bit, what's an interesting call?
It's a heavy investment. He just needs, the problem right now is he has a lot of good, cheap infantry, but his infantry needs some motivational DQC fire support backing him up, like some Stern Pioneers. Yeah, so you got Stern Grenadiers later on. There are some quality dudes in Tatra. He needs some of those more quality dudes to be winning these CQC firefights.
That's true. That's true. By the same token, he's got to make sure that he's not getting these tanks. The tanks are going to engage the infantry, and they're going to do decently well with it. But, there's still an idea of tanking and spanking over here from the Finnish infantry. No, and I mean that too, truly. I mean that truly. Unfortunately, Tenkoto Yunta going down here. Chikari going to get hammered here as well by all the MG34 fire. And there's a weird kind of like bulge grasping by these Volkssturm.
Yeah, and it's going to get flattened quite soon with these Stern Grenadiers and Stern Pioneers coming on through. I really like what he did with the Volkssturms here, of bringing them around the flank and hitting the infantry from the side, as all the Chikari's dudes were kind of set up to defend the front with the Panzer IIIs. And he didn't completely win that fight. He did lose some of his scrotch, but he managed to pick off a few dudes in, single combat, or single to multiple in combat, rather than just the frontal shows and everyone gets killed.
Well, the weird thing, too, is actually we just saw a Panzerschreck fire at a Kubelwagen and absolutely miss, but apparently that Kubelwagen died of fright and killed everybody inside along with it down south. Which is fair, because, the Panzerschreck is Tank Fear? I always want to say Tank Terror. So, living up to its name, I suppose.
And Panzerfaust is Tank Fist, right?
Yes, yes it is. 75 mil engaging the P3 down south. Numbers wise, it should be able to kill it, but that might be that whole hyper shot BS that we always see. And he goes down.
He does. But yeah, very good push here from Hypo, managing to get a foothold back down south. Some of its more quality infantry should be able to, get some good picks on these Zakaris and the leader squads. Get him at least back to the defensive line on the hilltop at least. But yeah, once again, it comes down to the infantry grind more than anything. Those Panzer IIIs can provide fire support, but just as long as Homer has, Finns in the forest, it's going to be a hard push.
Now, you might be too young for this, but there's a book series when I was a kid called the Magic Treehouse. There was always something like... Yeah, but Finns in the Forest sounds like it should be an edition of that particular book series. Like, oh yes, pirates in the backyard, Finns in the forest, and Blenheims and Ju-88s. So apparently the Brits are coming, and as are those traitorous Luftwaffe. Oh wait a second, it's not Luftwaffe because they're actually our bombers here. Flak 88 trying to go in and pick on it, but between that and the Ju-88, I think he'll accidentally hit his own troops. But he'll take out theirs as well, so...
Rough sacrifice. Pretty much going to halt that push and allow Homer to get a foothold back into that position. We're seeing some Feldjägers being brought on through. Pretty decent infantry, but only as support infantry, because they're basically just a fancy sniper squad. So,
Yes.
yeah, very good job for Homer being able to just regain his southern side. As we're seeing, Homer's just been able to get a good foothold early on in both the north and the southern flanks. You know, up north it's not looking as great for him, but he still has, you know, multiple defensive lines in depth, which he can, well, not too much in this case, but a lot of reinforcements he can just keep throwing in.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair way to put it. The Ratsuvaki kind of pinch things out. And let's be honest here. The 50-yard line, I think, for Orsha, especially on the flanks, plays to the Finnish way of war pretty consistently.
100%. It's all... If it just comes down to the flanks, and if the battle just stays to the flanks, I think Homer have a pretty nice victory here. Like I said before, Hippo really needs to think about just doing something in the center. He really needs to flex his legs and try to do something elsewhere.
That would probably be a pretty good idea. Maybe, I'm not saying throw in Tigers, because that's kind of like really overkill.
Yes.
But put 2 or 3 P4s, maybe bring in your last Scout P3. I think he still has one. I think we've seen 2 go down to the south, and the third. And you know what? Just stick him in the center. Start shelling the town. Maybe, just maybe, and hear me out on this, bring in the Panzerwerfer.
I'd love to see a Panzerwerfer rough some panzers.
Exactly. Who wouldn't want to see 30-ton tanks being thrown into the air to plunge on to finish positions? That'd be terrifying.
Yeah, it's the secondary explosion artillery.
Exactly. The tank turret simulator. Sturm Pioneers aggressing over here, going after the Ratsu Pioneeri. Not going to go well for them because those MP40s and the, Flammenwerfer, not going to be able to get them into range.
Yeah, the Finnish infantry, I mean, especially if the Sumois just do absolutely insane damage. Sturm Pioneer actually dropping in some smoke, good play, but once again, this is way too much of a beefy force of Finns, where he needs another beefy force of Germans to push through. He's going to try to level that force a bit with the Stuka, but the loop-de-loop thing is cool and all, but it's going to screw him over.
Exactly. Looking back to the northern side, we actually are seeing... I thought we were actually seeing a Finnish push, but no, the Finns are just going to hold out. There's no point for them to push here.
Yeah.
And we talked about this over here on Tuesday, which honestly was actually a pretty fascinating match. You really should check that out. But the idea of overextending, or at least being a little bit too aggressive, if you have a certain amount of territory being seized here. And I think Homer's kind of finding a good line for that. I think a lot of people would have an issue with this, but he's doing a really, really solid job of understanding which way to put this and how to kind of spread that out.
Yeah, as we've seen, like, a lot... Oh, Gauntlet goes down. As we've seen a lot of times with Reimer Apana, they're very good at just holding, like, a good piece of territory, because especially if it's more close quarters, as they don't have a whole lot of offensive options. And usually what happens is you hold a good defensive line, you grind the enemy against your Mannerheim rule, and then once you get to later stages of the match, the enemy just runs out of stuff if you treat it effectively, and then you can push once there's not a whole lot of guys left alive.
You know, that's actually probably a pretty good way to put it. We're actually seeing an attempt to counter battery fire going after the 88 mil. There's 100 mil going the other direction. Is anyone trying to go after that 155, that Finnish 155? No, he's going for the sissies instead. Curious decision. Yeah. But yeah, I like your concept of calling it the Mannerheim line here. It's exactly what it is. Finns, you have to play, and there's a Panzer to the west, that you have to play a very flexible defense. You cannot just kind of throw units at the problem. Your units just aren't strong enough. So
yeah, you got to make the problem come to you, and you go into the problem.
Yeah. Not quite able to get the same level of just like Mahdi terrifyingness that happened during the Winter War, but regardless, we're going to see another German attempt to push Sturm Pioneers to the south, and Aufklärer and some SS Sturm Grenadiers. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Panzerwerfer is going to suppress that flag over here to the southwest.
Yeah, honestly, at this point, it's not even rough over Hippo to try to gain the southern position. Like, it's way too heavily defended. It's a literal uphill battle. Like, I'm going to keep hammering. He needs a push center. He needs to open up another front. Face Blower is not going well.
No, it is not. You can tell that's not going well because when you have biplanes coming in and taking out your Stugs, as well as artillery, just hammering your anti-air, your lone anti-air, your brave Flakvierling, but it's not going to go well.
No.
Not at all.
That'd be a front of 9 trying to go in.
I think Vakotan's got it.
Yeah, definitely flying right over that is usually a death sentence. Oh, the reload.
Nah, he's going to take out one, but that's fine. That's fine. Those things are pretty cheap, all things considered. 70 points for an anti-tank material. That's actually a pretty quick reload. Not too bad.
Yeah, it's
not too bad at all.
Extremely cost-effective unit.
Yeah, with the anti-air is now down to the northern side. And it's the 88 down to the south? No, he's still here. But not by much. I'm also just waiting for that Panzerwerfer to identify its barrage. It's not doing that just yet. And the northern side, the infantry fight is heating up because there was a rather misguided Pentagonadier going into that house, and I'm pretty sure he's going to discover that property values are not what they should be, because that HOA is just brutal.
Yeah. He's taking it like a champion until his Pack 38 comes in and lobs some high explosive Israel.
I think the Pack 38 is a little more concerned, but yeah, killing the SDKFZ.
Probably a better concern.
Probably. Now, there is still 100 mil to the north, there's 100 mil to the south. Both are trying to counter battery fire over here, and the Panzerwerfer, yep, he's going for that southern position. He's going to hit his own troops, though.
That's just motivation.
Yeah, but that's also called forcing your own surrenders. And unfortunately for him, too, even if he suppresses that, there are two FCs being brought on in. He's going to kill one, force the others into a pin, and I think, okay, hey, that probably could have, that was probably the best it could have gotten.
Yeah, honestly, not bad at all. I think the Finnish infantry are going to be able to at least run away. The Sturm Grenadiers aren't pushing through, and he is automatically bringing in a bunch of reinforcements, some land shooters and a Sturm pile, to try and hold what he just gained. I guess the curious question is, will he be able to exploit getting his foothold back down south? There's not a whole lot currently here to stop him, just a few T-26s. But Homer does have time, and as we're seeing, yeah, bringing in a platoon of Jakaris to hold the line once again.
Well, let's remember one thing here. Those T-26s may as well be like ISs, because there's no anti-tank. So,
you're right.
Bring your Storm Grenadiers as much as you want to. Bring in your Pioneers. Bring in your Aufklärers. Bring however many people you want to. You can't do squat to these guys. And the last time I checked, you can't really do, Japanese anti-tank, pushes here either. We just kind of suicide into something.
Yeah.
So
here's the anti-tank grenade stick. Go at it, Hirohito.
Yeah, you see like the Hollywood version of that, and you just can't help but just be ridiculously just impressed that someone who was crazy, brave, insert adjective here, enough to do that.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts.
Kind of puts it mildly, but I appreciate your way of let's call it underselling the insanity. Now, Lederschützen, like I said, being brought right back in. We got Sissies here, we got T-26s. This push, it's great that they brought them up, but they're all dead. They're all dead. It doesn't matter.
It's very poor timing. The T-26 counterattack was just perfect. Like you said, no anti-tank, especially in the division which has a lot of anti-tank infantry for the Volkssturm. It's just poor timing there from Hypokrass, and he's going to pay the iron price. His land shooters out in the open. This is a killing field, and yeah, once again, like, Hypo should not be pushing down south. It is a bloody affair.
It certainly is. Now, let's not pretend like it's not going to go well. Eventually, T-26s can get picked off. You see it over here. P4, for example, can kill that. Finally, we're getting some material in there. But the BAFs over here can still go and technically kill. I say technically because it's probably not going to happen, but it's still technically a possibility. And the more you pour material down to the south, the Finns can just kind of wait. They can wait. bring in any air power if they want to. They can bring in more infantry if they want to. They can out-quality you. So
Yeah.
have fun.
And it's a pretty, like, not super narrow choke point, but a favourable choke point for Homer down south, as you just hold on to the little ridge line, and you're good. You don't even really need to push to the edge of the ridge line, just enough so you have the flag under control. Good enough.
Well, mildly amusing to me, and actually in both cases, the 155s over here for the Finns are cross-map shooting and hitting that 100 mil. The Panzerwerfer, by his own ability, fires one rocket to the north and bones a 40 mil. The guy's now backing up in disarray. So it's like 360 no-scopes in every direction.
Con, he has 7 of those.
Of the 155s? Yes. Yes. He's brought in like every single one he could in this map.
No, yes. But, God, Jesus Christ, that's a lot of very heavy artillery. And as you can see, it's working off really well here for Homer. Especially with all these choke point battles, he's running the artillery. He's run the artillery duel.
The only thing he probably should be doing is concentrating that to the north, because that's, even if you miss, you're going to hit something.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I have an issue with right now, is that he's aiming for support teams and not aiming for the front lines.
Target-rich environment.
Yes, very much so. Back to Pioneery, kind of get engaged by the Sturm Pioneers, and that's finally, at long last, a fight that the Sturm Pioneers can win, just from the lack of open ground, shall we call it?
Yeah.
In the northern side, the force that had been blue is actually very, very red. I'm sorry, sir. Yes.
No, it's northern side is. Actually, I was not looking bad here for Homer, but just being able to use the hill to block line of sight to force the enemy to come over, working kind of well here. The Panzer IVs can only really do so much in a close quarters fight.
My only gripe here is you're using your tank hunters to walk point. I would much rather the Jakaris go forward, take the losses, because those tank killers, well, that's the anti P4s.
Yeah, and he has. Fortunately, he does have a lot of them in his deck, which I actually quite like seeing. Oh, he's pushing the town now. Oh,
yes,
he's getting ballsy.
Yes, he is. Well, it makes sense. I mean, like I said, you're causing a lot of resources to be put to the flanks. Where's your opponent weak? Well, it means he hasn't done anything in the flank, in the middle, so might as well. Panzerwerfer. Yeah, taking out one already. Probably going to take out at least one of these squads of infantry as well.
Yeah. Which is why you'd never place your artillery near your main arterial supply line roads.
It's very, very true. You see a little bit of spotting happening here. Sissies engaged in the Feldjägers, which is mildly amusing because it's just a sniping game back and forth. And not for nothing, I feel like the Sissies actually should have a firepower advantage in that one pretty easily.
Yeah, what makes the Sissies also really good is their machine gun. I believe it's the only machine gun in game which does have a 1 kilometer range. So while they're plicking away at you with SVT-40, you got some other bugger with machine guns just going ham as well.
And if that wasn't enough, you can also just go and obliterate the building with a Ju-88 strike. So, oh man. PE2 also thinking about engaging a tank, and then decides that the better part of Valor, I guess. I don't think you've lost a line of sight on that. Yeah, maybe. But in the meantime, it does look like it's coming up Millhouse over here in favor of Homer. Between all of the artillery, which is now striking around the Panzerwerfer, I wouldn't be surprised if we see that thing get planked by the 150. Yep, there we go.
Caster's miracles today, Khan, not Caster's curses.
I suppose it probably depends on your point of view there, but you're absolutely right either way. P4s are getting called in, but I think this is starting to be a little bit too late. As just Hypokrass, or Hypokrass, you got me doing it now. Hypokrass over here, I think, unfortunately, just didn't quite stir himself to move in a position other than just those flanks. I think he got fixated, which happens to the best of us. So,
classic tunnel vision problem. As you see, we're really not that crazy of a central push here from Homer. It's just a bunch of recon dudes and a few infantry scattered about. He's managed to hit a very weak point in the Hypokrass's line and just take a huge amount of territory, but also a huge amount of points. I mean, we went from what, like a 10-minute to defeat now to 2 minutes to defeat?
Exactly. Exactly. And not like I say worse necessarily, but looking down south, I mean, we have the P4 being pushed into that tree, and the Chikari getting close enough. They should be able to actually get maybe the Faust before they die. No.
Oh,
No.
a shame.
But the amount of speed that Tatra has given up moving into the trees, I think, is the biggest harm that's happened here today.
Yeah, 100%. It's just I mean, it is alluring of Tatra to go the infantry grind route against other infantry heavy divisions, because you do have a lot of pretty good infantry in Tatra. But you still don't want to have to rely on that. You want to be able to use your advantage of having tanks, and honestly a very nice range of tanks between cheap Panzer 38s, midline Panzer IVs and Stugs, and a few Tigers here and there. But in this case, he just never really utilized that advantage.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. I was nodding sagely in time to your wisdom. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that necessarily translates very, very well. Down to the south, Chikari does take out the P4 with one of his own Fausts. So the north, the Ju-88 obliterates what had been perhaps an attempted resurgent push. And I think we're just going to start to see the last few seconds over here, moving on forwards.
Yeah. Still, I'm just impressed by the amount of artillery he managed to just. It felt like he snuck it in because we weren't really paying too much attention to the artillery park. It's like all of a sudden, oh yeah, here's half a dozen heavy artillery guns, and as you can see, definitely making their presence known right now.
Yeah, which is kind of a weird thing to be talking about. And like again, the Finns not exactly known for their firepower, but very, very well. Did very, very well here. Maybe not tons of kills, but certainly a ton of impact on this game. Much more than I would argue than the air power.
Especially the craters they make.
Oh, true. Oh, very true. 2 and 1, and unfortunately, that one artillery position to the northern side does get taken out the last possible second. And if we look over here, KD under 1,000. Actually, no, excuse me, just more than 1,000.
1,500.
Yeah,
That's pretty damn good. Homer is trading extremely efficient in that match. He just set up at Mannerheim line.
and you can see again those tank killer squads, P38, P3, tank killing a bunch of infantry. Again, bizarrely enough, probably the most effective squads overall. All those tank killers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everyone else is kind of spreading the burden.
Very, very true. And yes, I would say honestly, hidden VIPs would be those artillery positions overall. The concentration for firepower is just delicious.
Yeah, I mean, once the artillery battery is online, any and all of Hypo's artillery was just gone.
Yes.
That part of his tab, he might as well just rent into the deck editor, delete all the units, and just continue playing the match, because they had not much of an impact after that point.
Except bizarrely enough, I think the Panzerwerfer. I think the mobility was really, really great for that. But I'm wondering, and this, of course, again, another 2020 kind of idea for hindsight. Air power didn't seem quite as useful or as touched as it could have been, especially the HE-111s. He had some nice ground support. He just chose not to use it.
100%, especially when fighting against players who are heavily defended in forests and towns. Good old carpet bomb and run. It's kind of like an off-map artillery. It's a good way to clear them out. It's not as effective of off-map, but you gotta make do with what you got.
Exactly. Any final thoughts there, sir?
No.
Well, folks, in that case, then that's going to do it for us today. Until next week, I'm Connell Work.
I'm Rangru. Take it easy.